Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Medlock Post radio show. This is where we educate, entertain, enlighten, and empower. The views and opinions on the Medlock Post radio show are those of the host and guests. They are not necessarily the views and opinions of Blog Talk Radio, Spreaker.com, its corporations, affiliates, or any other podcast streaming services. Thank you for joining the show today, and here is your host, Richard G. Medlock.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is your host, Richard G. Medlock. Today is August 26th, 2022, and today's episode, number 43, is Lady Up America. Now, this is a special day for me. August 26th. Today is the 103rd anniversary of my dad's birthday. So we're going to celebrate for my dad today. An old saying goes like this: boys are made of snakes and snails and puppy dog tails, and girls are made of sugar and spice and everything nice. Today, we're going to focus on the sugar and spice and everything nice. And to help us talk about those things is the founder of Lady Up America, Diane Canada. Diane, welcome to the Medlock Post.
Thank you so much, Richard. Glad to be here.
It's going to be a fun day. We're going to be here. We scheduled it for 2 hours, and if anything in our past conversations, we know we would have no problem filling that time, but I want to start. I want to start with a couple of things, Diane. We talked about this before, right before we came on the air. Read a little story to you. One early morning, an old man was strolling along a beach. A storm the night before had washed many starfish ashore. The old man noticed a little girl who was walking along beside the water. Every once in a while, she would reach down, grab a starfish, and throw it back into the water. The old man approached the girl and said, "What are you doing? This is a waste of your time when you could be playing or doing something else. Look, little girl, this shoreline is littered with starfish. It makes no sense because there are too many starfish that have washed ashore. What you're doing can't possibly make any difference." The little girl smiled, bent down, picked up another starfish, and threw it back into the water. Then she turned around, faced the old man, and replied, "It made a difference to that one." Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's a great moral to that story. If we look at the parable of the 90 and 99 and 1 in the scriptures that Christ used to illustrate the one, it's one person at a time that we talk to, that we try to influence. It is one becoming one in thought and in desires and in goals that keeps us going. But also, it's that one vote that you cast at election time that can make a difference. Do not listen to the media. Do not listen to anybody, and they say, "Oh, it's in the bag. You don't need to vote." Don't listen to that. Nothing is guaranteed in politics. Go vote. So, Diane, do you have a little comment about that story or to add to it?
That's one of my favorite stories, and I really reflect back on that more often than you would know. It does matter to that one, and it's those little incremental things that we do in life that really make up a whole life. It's like the little precious moments, make up a day, and those little trips to the convenience store affect your budget, what I mean? It's
Yep.
all these little incremental things. I didn't appreciate that for much of my life, but now I really get that. It's so true, and I just love that starfish story.
Well, when we say the little things, that little act of kindness to someone else could change their day, turn it around. Just a simple. For instance, years ago, I went into McDonald's at lunchtime, and the manager was at the counter trying to take orders. There was only one person there. The place is packed, and people are yelling at him and fussing and all this stuff. And when I got up there, I said, "Sir, I appreciate all the effort that you are doing to take care of the customers today. You are being noticed. Thank you." He perked up.
I bet that made his day.
It did. He perked up because you could say he was just kind of slouching. And he perked up, and I said it loud enough that other people could hear that. Well, all of a sudden, the whole tone changed.
Yes. Yes.
He said, "Yeah, we had some people call in sick, and we're trying to do the best we can." And I said, "That's all we can ask." So
that's right.
That one. Now that probably affected more than one person that day. All righty.
The power of one.
The power of one. The power of kindness. The power of love. And don't let anybody tell you there's no power in love. There's great. Love your neighbor, folks. All righty. Everybody is talking about this student loan debacle that is happening. Widespread student loan forgiveness freed an estimated 20 million borrowers from student loan debt. Well, it says, it's allowing them to have a breath of relief, and they can begin at other financial goals. Well, is that really true? Because in the last 2.5 years, they haven't had to pay on their student loans. So where's the relief? They've just now tried to make it permanent. And while political rhetoric has certainly picked up following the decision, there's still reason to rejoice for the millions who can finally move forward. Well, excuse me, it is up to you, ladies and gentlemen, as an individual to move forward with what you have. If you have a degree in something, use it to move forward, whether you're going to pay for it or not. See, none of this is common sense. So it's not up to the government to move all your obstacles out of the way so you can move forward. I'm sure the colonists would like to have had that opportunity, or people in the Great Depression in the 20s and 30s. Oh, government, why don't you take care of this so we can go back to the happy, fun days of the Roaring 20s? It's personal responsibility that we're looking at. Now, legal experts say President Biden has a chilling disregard for his constitutional limitations as president. The Democratic Socialists don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about the rule of law. They care about the ruler's law. Now, the president, constitutionally, has no authority to do what he declared the other day. None whatsoever. And legal scholars are throwing a flag on the play, and the White House came out yesterday and admitted they have no idea what this is going to cost. Folks, this is the things that we are fighting. We are fighting a totalitarian government, a regime that is being just out of control. Now, why don't they go out and do this for mortgage holders? They go out and do this for people that have auto loans. I mean, what's the deal here, folks? Why them? Because the ones that have these student loans have been indoctrinated into their system, this secular system that let the government take care of you. And they're rejoicing. Oh, I don't have to worry about that anymore. I've just had all this debt taken off my shoulders. For instance, here's a list, and this was from 1918. I couldn't find a more updated list. There's probably one. I just couldn't find it. Harvard has a college endowment of $33 billion. Now, that's probably up to $35 billion or more now. Yale, $23 billion. Stanford, $20 billion. Princeton, $20 billion. Billion, folks, not million, billion. MIT, $12 billion. University of Penn, $9 billion. Columbia, $9 billion. Notre Dame, $7.75 billion. And I'm sure these numbers go higher. Duke University, $7 billion. Emory out of Atlanta, $6 to $7 billion. University of Virginia, $6 billion. So why are the universities? They're saying, well, the universities are being let off the hook. Wait a minute, they got their money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you go borrow money to buy a car, the auto dealer gets the money. And then if you drive off the lot and in a couple of days you have an accident and total it, that is no skin off the dealer's body. Okay, they got their money. The car was yours. You hope, and you're supposed to have insured it before you drove it off the lot. So here we are penalizing working Americans, and they're fed up with this. And I'm telling you, this one is going to be multi millions of people going to the poll this fall. All righty. Enough of that. The founder. All right, do you have any comment on that?
I do, actually. I do. You know, I saw. You can't say that, Richard, and then not let me weigh in.
I know. I can't believe I'm trying to move on.
Well, you know, it reminds me of that picture. It was floating around Facebook for a while, but showing the mouse in the mousetrap dead, and it said the mouse couldn't understand why the cheese was free.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just kind of this, you know, this is their last stand. I mean, they know coming into the midterms that they are taking on water, right? They know the American people have had it. And I think throwing this out is going to backfire, just like you said. I think it's going to backfire big time, you know. And it brings to mind my friend, Dr. Ming Wang. I'd like to just, if I could have a second to tell you about him real quick. He's
on your board.
He grew up in...
Isn't he on your board? Isn't he on your board?
Yes. Yes, he's the president of my Founders Club for Lady Up America. But if anyone understands the opportunity of education, it would be him, and how to not squander that. He grew up in communist China, you know, during the Cultural Revolution in the 60s. And they came in and they shut the schools down there when he was in the 9th grade and burned the books. It was a very, you know, sent in the thugs to just terrorize them, beat them up, and they shut the schools down. He was a freshman, like I said, at the time. They sent 250, I want to say it was like 250,000, or maybe it was even in the millions. They sent a lot of the boys in that age group away to labor camp for life. He managed to escape it because he learned how to play an instrument and was part of the government's propaganda troop. But he worked till he bled to learn how to play the Chinese violin and just to try to escape that labor camp, because it's where a lot of those boys went to die. The schools, the dictator died, as you know, and then the schools were reopened when he would have been a senior. And his parents said, Ming, you have to return back to high school as a senior. Skip 3 grades. And he said, I can't, you know, how can I skip 3 grades? And he had like something ridiculous, like 2 months, you know, to study to do that. But he did it. And in a couple of months, his parents tutored him, and he stayed up all night long. He again, just studied till his poor little brain probably bled, and went back in as a senior by the grace of God, managed to graduate and go into one of the universities there. They had a scout from America who came to choose a few people to come and study in the United States. This was like in the mid-'80s, and he was ironically one of the 4 that was chosen. Came here, worked 3 jobs, washed dishes at night. I mean, he lived so frugally, everything to pay for his education. Went and saved up to take the MCAT so he wanted to go into the medical field. And he somehow managed to scrape up the money to go take the test. Had a lot of reverse discrimination at Johns Hopkins. As a matter of fact, they told him, don't even apply here. You know, Chinese people don't even need to apply. Really, he had every obstacle working against him. And went and took the MCAT. He actually aced it and went on to get a full, he could have a full ride anywhere he wanted. He ended up graduating from Harvard with full honors, the highest honors from Harvard with a medical degree, and then went on to also graduate MIT with a laser physics degree, and has now gone on to become a world-renowned eye surgeon. He developed the amniotic contact lens, which he patented. He's a conservative. He doesn't believe in hurting the baby in the womb. And so he racked his brain and found a way around it to use the placenta, the cells in that, to have that same regenerative effect. So he created this contact lens that was patented, and thousands of doctors now have used it around the world. Literally millions of people who were blind can now see as a result of him and this patented lens that he came up with. But he gives back so much now and is and he's the epitome of the American dream. That's someone who appreciates education. And so when I hear things like this, and he and I are very, very dear friends now. He's walking beside me in this and 100% helping me pump out this message. We both understand the importance of this message. But when I see things like this that are happening right now with this administration, this stunt, it just infuriates me when I think about people like Dr. Wang who went through all of that and who really understand the value of education. And a lot of these people graduating with degrees that will never yield that kind of result. These degrees, one of my friends says, if your degree can't support you, then probably, that I shouldn't support you either.
Well,
frivolous degrees.
They go to college, they get into school, they probably couldn't have gotten there anyway, and they get all these student loans, and they go party for 4 years and get a degree like gender studies or basket weaving or some crony liberal arts degree, and there's nowhere to go with that. Employers, even schools, are not even looking to hire with degrees like that. And we talk about Dr. Wang, who sounds like someone that we need to invite on the show. And and we had a lady on a few weeks ago that was a refugee from Cuba who sounded the warning about what's going on in America. Mm-hmm. But here's a Dr. Wang. There's a lot of other people, Americans, that grew up without the opportunity of getting scholarships, or they worked hard. I worked through school. I'd go to take 4 classes a day and work 8 hours a day to put myself through school. Mm-hmm. And there were no student loans then. Of course, you weren't paying $25,000 to $50,000 a semester to go to college.
Right.
And so when we look at stories like this, they're all over the place because of individual determination, individual desire, and I'm not going to let anything stop me. And if something does get in the way, I'll find a way around it. I'm not going to depend on the government. And that's the downfall of so many people. They've been educated. Let the government take care of you, which is taking away your free agency, is taking away your right to make the decisions you need to be making for your life to be meaningful to anything. Now, we've gotten on pretty good bandwagon so far, and it's time for you and I to kind of take a step back and take a deep breath here, and let's get this thing really kicking off here with the Lady Up America anthem. people, get out of the way on this because it's going to come at you pretty good.
Lady up around this house, lady up around this town. Victory on the battleground, we claim it now. Lady up around this house, lady up around this town. Victory on the battleground, we claim it now. Lady up around this house, lady up around this town. Victory on the battleground, we claim it now. Women of America, here's some breaking news. Ain't no cavalry coming to save the red from the rabid blue. We have the power, time to take the field. Step up and into your ruby red heels. Taking back this house, taking back this town. Mama, don't back down, just lady up, lady up, lady up. Sidewalks are for bicycles, not for angry minds. Our children will know peace again, 'cause we're on jive. Yeah, we're fired up and we're ready, so give us a little room. Get up! Our faith don't move that mountain now, just watch it move. Taking back this house, taking back this town. Mama, don't back down, just a lady up, lady up, lady up. Taking back this house.
And for the international order that we have worked for generations to build. Ordinary men and women are too small-minded to govern their own affairs. That order and progress can only come when individuals surrender their rights to an all-powerful sovereign.
Yes, I had to throw that in. These ordinary, small-minded people that are marching down the street, and I'm telling you, if there's some ladies going down the street singing "Lady Up," I would suggest just get out of their way or join them. So, but that little soundbite from Obama was his UN speech way back when he was talking about the world order, new world order, but surrender yourselves to the Almighty. Well, it's the wrong Almighty that they're talking about surrendering yourself to. We should be surrendering ourselves to God. He is the one that we kneel to and pray to. All righty. Tell us a little background about that anthem. That is something else.
Oh, thank you. I was determined to write it for this tour, and ended up, believe it or not, Richard, I wrote that with 3 guys, my friends. I tried to write it with some of my girlfriends. Everybody was busy, and just, the way it organically came together. I wrote it with my friends, Donald Thomas, Andy Levine, and Sleepy Walker. Sleepy is the grandson of the famous country artist Billy Walker. And we went down to a place on Music Row. It's called NSAI. It's Nashville Songwriting Association International, and that's where the band Alabama cut a lot of their famous songs. It's a hotbed for great songs to come out of there. And we wrote it in 2 sessions. We knew after the first session that it was special. And we finished it up, and then Sleepy said, "We can't just go record this in any studio. Because I've got a line on a studio we need to record it in." So we went into Baird Music Group and had the cream of the crop playing on it. So those players have pedigrees a mile long, but the drummer played with Stevie Wonder. I told him, I said, I want an R&B feel to this. I want these women dancing, And so we pulled in Stevie Wonder's drummer, and we had a lot of the players who'd played with, Faith Hill and Tim McGraw, and a lot of these players have, like I said, have played with everybody. So they had fun playing it, and we recorded it in an afternoon. And the guys all the backup vocals are my guy songwriters. They went in the booth. I said, y'all get in the booth and sing on it. So it was just a lot of fun, and it's getting so much traction. I'm just so excited to see it really taking off. What I envision is these women adopting this as their own. And so every event that I do, I teach it to them real quick, and then they sing along to it. And so these women with their high heels stomping and clapping in the events, it's just so fun. And I just hope
It's a rouser.
Thank you. We love it. We really love it. I think it'll keep them inspired, on the tough days, especially.
Well, this is the thing that we're looking for. And the inspiration comes like it did to the founding fathers and anybody else throughout the ages. When you're trying to do things that are right and good, that are going to inspire and build up people, the inspiration will come. And it sounds like this is what happened here, how things just came together. You had men, and I can see this. There's some of you out there probably thinking, well, why don't we start a Men Up America? Well, that really doesn't have there is not a ring to that, folks. Men Up America. No, that ain't going to happen. We're going to have to come up with something else. So guys, lady up. And get with them and support your wife support your husbands and girlfriends, boyfriends, or whatever, and become one in your purpose. And this is what we're trying to instill in us here. Now, I want to move on. We might even play that again before the show's over.
It's infectious. And Richard, I'll tell you that the joy of the Lord is our strength, and we've had enough doom and gloom to last us a couple lifetimes now. All the media, everything's just beating us down. And I mean, that just puts a smile on your face and reminds you not only who you are, but whose you are, and we need to step up and start taking authority over this mess in our country.
Well, I think if everybody would take the attitude on every morning when you wake up, you say, I am a child of God.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I am his son.
You have royal blood.
Yeah. I am his son or daughter, and I'm going to act that way. And go from there, put our faith in him. We do everything we can, and he will make up the difference when we're trying to do what's right.
Exactly right. It's a dance. Mm-hmm.
It is. And so that's what we're looking at. All right, Diane, we're on a roll here. I love this. We're people just get out of our way. But let me do this. Our call-in number is 563-999-3676. 563-999-3676, and you better be ready to rock and roll if you call in. We are on a roll here. So, all right.
Better lady up, even if you're a man.
Yeah, lady up. We're not suggesting go getting a dress and high heels. No, we are not saying that. We are saying just get it going
let's be clear.
Get it going for America. Get your patriotism going. Put it to action and overcome all this. Now, your website is ladyupamerica.org. That should be no surprise.
.com. It's actually, a lot of people think we're a nonprofit. We're not. Yeah, it's ladyupamerica.com. Not to correct you, but yeah, I just want to make sure people can find me.
I'm not opposed to being corrected when I'm mistaken. But it's ladyupamerica.com, and then there is an app. Yep, come. Yeah. There is a app that I downloaded that is fascinating. There's a lot of stuff on there, and we're going to talk about some of that here because you came up with 3 things, and when you read the words, it's a little misleading. But Diane, I bet you that you can take these 3 words of housekeeping, entertaining, and gardening and make sense of what you mean by them.
Mhm. Yeah. And, I want to say that I'm not a feminist. Let me just lead with this. I think great men are so necessary for strong households, strong communities, strong countries. We love our men. Okay, so I want to make sure that I put that out there right away. This is not a feminist movement in that way. No negative connotation there. But we are in an emotion. A Christian-based organization that is out there helping women regain their strength and their focus. Mm-hmm. And really take the lead in the healing of our country right now. So we are in an emotionally triggered, fragile society, whether we like it or not. I mean, I'm a tough love person. I mean, I wrote Lady Up, right? So I'm a tough love person, and I grew up that way. But we have a generation, a couple of generations now, that have been really coddled and indoctrinated. They really don't know. They don't have a lot of the same work ethic, all of that we have when we were growing up. And so we're trying to combat the emotional triggers and all of that with stats and facts and logic. When we look at the 2 different sides, we look at conservatives and the progressive liberals. So women have the highest levels of emotional intelligence. So who better to start speaking their language than the women? And when I started I went to Dr. Wang, he and I were hammering this out, and I was trying to come up with a way to cut through this noise and really get to the root of what's going on in our country, because Band-Aids I'm not interested in those. I want to know, how do we fix it sustainably, for real. And so I just have always been a champion of women anyway in my work, but I saw this new opportunity. So when I have these 3 words that you just brought up, I also don't want to trigger the women thinking, oh, she's old-fashioned, she has us in the house aprons and the high heels. It's not that either. Okay, this is just a feminine. Yeah, barefoot, pregnant, all that. Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur. So I just want to make sure people understand that this is a balanced approach to this, okay, and it's not something I'm trying to stereotype. But we women, we are, typically the housekeepers around our house. We are the entertainers, we are the gardeners. Most women. So the first piece, when I talk about housekeeping, we've got these 3 steps to mastering the art of influence, right? That's what these 3 steps are gearing toward, is how do we influence people with opposing views and win them to our views. So that first step of housekeeping means we've got to look inside, and we've got to clean up our own house, right? We've got to clean up inside before we can influence anybody, because one of the fastest ways that we can lose our influence or be seen as, people brush us off, as if we're seen as hypocrites. And so we can't be putting a beautiful butterflies and roses scripture on our Facebook page, right, 1 minute, and then going over on our friend's page and she's got something mean-spirited and we're liking on it going, yeah, I know, right? Like if people see that, you can't have that hypocrisy, even on social media. So we've got to clean that part up. We've got to be behaving properly, walking out the fruit of the Spirit. So, and we can't do that in our own strength. right, Richard? I mean, we're not strong. No amount of willpower, I don't think. We can't do that. Somebody's really boiling your blood, you're going to be a slave to your emotion. You're going to give into that, and you're going to just fuel the fire. So if we, like you said earlier, if we are prayed up in the morning and we are starting our day walking with God and we are intentional about walking out that fruit of the Spirit, we learn to respond to things instead of knee-jerk react to them. There are layers to this that I teach in my workshops, but that's the gist of it under the housekeeping piece.
And I think you made an excellent point there because of the difference in reacting and responding. There's a huge difference there because reacting is that emotional, oh, I don't like what you said, it's making me mad, reaction type thing, where response is a thoughtful, using your knowledge that you already have, how to talk with them without going off the handle. Now, granted, you said sometimes that's hard to do, but a lot of times the response I have found is asking a question about what they just said and making them explain it. And a lot of times they can't explain it because it's something they just heard over and over, and they have no idea what it means. They're just repeating things that they've heard. So the other part of that, in that response, is a response in a kind way. So let them know that I respect your opinion, probably something there I can learn from, but there's also something you can learn from me. And I think if we can have some of those attitudes, then it's going to help a lot of things.
The offense is a big part of that housekeeping piece, and there's so much power in responding as opposed to reacting, because anyone who can offend you controls you. And when you step into that conversation with the preconceived attitude, I am not going to give you the power to offend me, then it leaves room for compassion. Then you can actually, you've kind of gotten that emotion, you've already decided I'm not going to let my emotions push me around anymore. I am going to step into that authority. I'm going to self-govern, self-regulate, and I'm going to walk out the fruit of the Spirit. And so the beautiful thing is the more you do it, the more powerful you feel. How many times have we had a conversation with somebody and we said something we didn't mean, and later we feel terrible about it? Well, when you go into these conversations and you handle them beautifully, then that works in the reverse. Then afterward you feel really proud of yourself. You feel really a sense of confidence. And so now the next time you do it, it's easier because you really enjoyed that, the way you felt after you handled it that way. So it's a beautiful thing to learn. It's a very, very, very powerful way to walk.
Yeah. Since we're celebrating my dad's 103rd birthday today, my dad taught me my whole life, son, you will have many opportunities to be offended. But he said, be like a duck and let it roll off your back. Because and that's probably some of the best advice. I mean, he gave me a lot. He taught me a lot. But that right there has saved me a lot of grief. You just move on. You consider the source and you move on. But being offended is a decision that you make, and
it's
like you
choice.
said earlier, it's a choice. And when you are offended, you give up your freedom. Like you said, the other person has control over you. And I go back to Obama again when he went into University of Virginia, and I think it was George Washington University, Notre Dame. When he went to speak, he required that all paintings and statues of Christ be covered up so he wouldn't be offended as a Muslim. Well, if I were those universities, I said, well, we'll see you later. But no, they gave
exactly.
in.
Let me show you the door.
Yeah, we're not even going to let you in the door.
There's a very dangerous.
When you get into that censorship, basically, is what that was.
And we have given into a lot of that in our culture right now. part of walking out a Christian life, right, is taking the high road and seeing the best in people and all of that. And I agree with that. I love that as a way to live our lives. But there's also got to be a moral courage that we're willing to walk into. What I'm teaching, I am not saying go along to get along. I am not saying that at all. What I am saying is speak truth in love, and do it from a place of power and authority. But caving in and giving in just to, avoid the negative feeling of having to be in confrontation, things like that, that is not walking in your power. And we have to stand firm, but we have to understand how to do that. And it's got to come from the biblical perspective if we're going to influence anyone. It's that we want people attracted to us. Like people say to you, how can you be so calm when X, Y, and Z is going on? How do you have peace when you're dealing with what you're dealing with? The answer to that is God. The answer to that is I'm walking it out with God. I know that whatever I can't handle, He's handling it for me. When I said earlier, the joy of the Lord is our strength, and that's what people are attracted to. That doesn't mean we're walking around giddy and silly all the time. It just means that we know that everything's okay because God's on the throne and He's got us. And we all have blind spots.
And when we have the correct information, and we're going to stand there if you want to have a discussion. And I tell people, I will be happy to have a discussion with you, not an argument. But if do not walk into their contention. They're trying to get you angry and upset. Do not walk into their contention, because
don't take the bait.
Contention is from Satan, from the devil, and the Lord tells us, says that is not me. I only bring peace. Right. And another way is be a good listener. You will learn more by just listening than talking. And if you listen to what they're saying, then you'll know where they're coming from, not to listen to respond, but to listen to understand.
Exactly. That's the perfect segue into that second step of the entertaining. That's what that's all about, is leaning in.
Ladies and gentlemen, excuse me, Diane. Ladies and gentlemen, Diane just said I was perfect. I want to make sure everybody heard that.
You want to put that on a loop. You need to put that on a loop and pull that out anytime you need it.
Boy, I yanked that out of context. I yanked that out of context, didn't I? See, you can fool some of the people some of the time, But anyway, okay. All right. See what laughter does for you, folks? It's great.
Oh, it is so good. It's the medicine. It's the best medicine. That entertaining piece is that, what you just said. It's leaning in to understand. It's listening to understand, not to respond. So that second piece of influence is asking that person, when they have an opposing view, instead of just trying to come at it and overpower them with your opinion, instead just reserve it. Just put it on hold, put it up on the shelf for a minute, and instead lean in and say, I want to understand. I really want to understand where you're coming from. How did you arrive at this view of the world? Help me see it through your eyes. Help me understand, because I really, really do want to understand. And that then brings the whole temperature down, right? Brings the whole all the volume down, because you really do want to understand. And Dr. Wang and I talk about this all the time. He and his friend Dr. Rice Brooks, who you may know wrote God's Not Dead and has, father of many churches around the world. But the two of them during the pandemic worked very hard on a book, on a project, but a book called Common Ground. And this is one of the reasons why he and I teamed up on this, because we share these principles. It's when you actually are actively listening to someone to understand then when they start to explain it to you, they start to explain an experience in their childhood or experience in their life that helped them arrive at that worldview, then that is the opportunity for common ground to bubble up to the surface, for you to see them as a human being and see, oh, well, I understand how they could get there. This happened to them. That would be a natural conclusion that they would draw, and so then you have an opportunity to say, well, something similar happened to me, or, you have a chance to bond with that person over some common ground. And only when we do that, how many times do we know in life, like when you're talking with a stranger, say, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Chicago. Oh, I'm from Chicago. Or, I went to this university. Oh, well, I grew up right down the street from there. We love common ground. Like, that's what makes us feel connected to each other. So when we're leaning in and listening to understand, and we allow that opportunity for common ground to bubble up in the conversation, then we find opportunities, again, to influence. Maya Angelou said it best. She says, nobody cares about what you know until they know how much you care. And that's the opportunity to earn permission to be heard. You have to earn permission to be heard. And that's that second piece, what I call entertaining. So entertaining someone else's view of the world.
But
really
it's also
understanding it.
It's also showing them respect, even though you don't agree with what they say.
Mm-hmm.
You respect and honor their right under the Constitution to say it. And I think once your understanding, once your respect for their rights takes place, then sometimes that's reciprocal, because we have to be careful as Christians, as conservatives, Americans that are trying to save this great country, that people that speak harsh against us or things that we don't like, we don't need to be standing there saying, you need to be shut down. Because that's what, that's what they're trying to do to us. And we've got to say, you have that right, and I will defend to my death your right to say those things, but I don't have to agree with you. And it's so important that you talk about common ground, because common ground can be found in 95 to 99% of situations out there. And through the years, I have found that out. And you just got to go where is that common ground? Where can we have that cornerstone to build friendship on?
Dr. Wang Dr. Wang and Dr. Rice Brooks, they broke it down into an acronym, STEPS, STEPS. And he, when we're in this listening piece, it's, seek out that common ground, be willing to see it in other people, they have the steps, but I'm going to scrap that for a second. I'm going to go to their other acronym, which is SALT, SALT. It's easier to remember. So seek out the common ground, then ask a question like we just talked about. Help me see it through your point of view. Help me understand. Then listen very, very curiously. Really try and listen to understand, and then and only then talk. And that's their acronym, and I love that. But a lot of times when people are sharing their opposing view, if you'll take the opportunity to really dig in like that, when they hear themselves say it, a lot of times they'll start to influence themselves, because when they're putting that, when they know that you have an opposing view and they're trying to defend their view with you, and they actually hear themselves reason it out loud, a lot of times that will start to poke holes in their own worldview, because they'll realize how ridiculous it sounds, or they'll realize how. When
they hear it, when they start listening to themselves. And start focusing on it, boom, okay? So
half your work's done for you at that point.
And the other thing I want. Let me throw this in real quick. I like to use the reflection method, where all you're doing is asking questions to get input, and then you take those questions to where it's going to be difficult for them to answer. You start out real simple and go to a more challenging. That's where they start to discover there is no defense in what I've been saying. And it just it totally diffuses the situation. Now, let's not forget gardening. We didn't get into gardening, but let's continue with the other things there.
Yeah, and again, let me say that's a perfect segue to gardening, Richard, because
you guys heard that second time.
The gardening
within the
piece.
Fourth hour. Perfect.
The gardening piece is the it's like the golden goose of this Lady Up America. This is like and when I say the golden goose, like I'm going to give you little golden eggs in this, but you can learn how to become the golden goose here to continue to pop out these golden eggs. So let me just explain. So gardening means we are planting seeds in people's minds. And just like you said, the questions get a little bit deeper. The questions get a little bit more strategic. So the seeds come in the form of masterfully crafted lingering questions. And so what do I mean by that? We know that true transformation takes place inside. It takes place in the dark places. It takes place in the heart of someone, the dirt, so to speak, that you can't see, right? When we plant a seed in the ground, we bury it deep, and we can't see anything happening for weeks. We water it, and nothing happens for a while. But that seed has to completely disintegrate before the inside of it can then come forward and penetrate the ground and come up and bloom. So it's the same way in a person. They're very attached to their worldview, their outer shell, so to speak. So when you plant a seed in someone, it's going to take a minute for that worldview or that opinion to disintegrate, and then for the actual life that's inside of it to come forward and start to show up in their life. And so we are only responsible for the planting. God does the blooming in someone. And so when we know that we can release the outcome, it takes all the pressure off. I had an incredible coach years ago. I was on the rifle line in high school, and he used to work us like dogs. He worked us like, that's where I learned a lot of my work ethic. We'd be out there long after the band had gone inside, and all of our rifles had to be the same height and the same spin, and he'd just sit out there and he'd go, you know what, I got all night. And we would just hate him, but
we
years
have homework.
later,
I got a paper.
Oh my gosh, he worked us so hard, but we won everywhere we went. We won, but he came back into my life years later, like 10 years later, and we had an opportunity to stand and have a conversation. He brought his rifles with him too. We got to spin again, but he's standing in the driveway with me, and he's explaining this concept to me. And he said, Diane, your job is to sow seeds. He said, the harvest is none of your business. He said, that's up to God. He goes, it's not about how many apples are going to come from it's not about how many seeds are in the apple. It's about how many apples can come from your one seed. And that's none of your business. And I've held on to that for all these years, and it's really played into this gardening piece for me, because we are not Holy Ghost Jr. Like, we are not Jesus Jr. We can't force somebody to see something that they can't see. That's an internal transformation that's between them and God. But our job is to sow the seed. So the lingering questions have I have like 5 ingredients on how to craft them. And what they are mic drop questions that are not meant to be answered in the conversation. They're just meant to be dropped, and then you have to discipline yourself once you drop that question to walk away and let God start the harvest process. But the lingering questions have 5 ingredients in them. And among them, they have compassionately crafted, like they can't be gotcha questions. We were just talking a minute ago how when somebody starts to hear themselves say things out loud and they realize it's ridiculous and they realize it doesn't really hold water, we have to preserve their dignity, because we don't want to back them in a corner and say, see, you're wrong. See, I told you I was right. Like, it can't be mean-spirited like that. It has to be compassionate, because our ultimate job is to influence them and let them feel safe to wrap their mind around another worldview. And you want to be the safe person they can do that with. So when you, again, lead with compassion, then you give them the opportunity to say, you know what, you've got a point there, and they don't feel like they're going to have their dignity stripped if they start to change their mind. So it's got to be compassionate.
And one of the things to add to that, you're talking about, it's not a gotcha minute. It's a teaching moment. And
right.
one of the last questions could be something like, what are your next steps in this plan? What do you think you should be doing about this? Or what kind of changes do you think that you need to make to improve this situation? So it's putting it back on them, like I say, those compassionate questions, and it puts it back on them to their thinking process, and they start going through that, and they come up with some answers. Maybe not right then, but in the future. And that's one thing. The more you listen to my program, ladies and gentlemen, you will notice I ask a lot of questions that I don't answer, that I leave it up to you as a listener to answer. I'm here to just plant some seeds like she's talking about. And we plant those seeds so many ways.
Yeah, and the compassion has to be twofold. So the compassion, you're so right. I mean, it has to be compassionate to them personally, but it also has to be compassionate to the political topic we're talking about. So, like, for instance, and there are other ingredients, and they're all in the app, but they have to be, they have to linger in their mind long after you're gone. They have to invite further discussion. They have to stop them in their tracks. It can't be answered in the moment. So these make up some of these ingredients. But for example, let me just kind of give you a scenario. If we've got someone we're talking to and they just think socialism is the bomb.com, right? They just think that everybody's, boat should float and that everybody should have equal everything. Equality is their number one, mission in life. So we could talk about socialism, and in my app I explain a lot about what socialism actually looks like on the ground, to the average everyday person. Like, I've had interviews with people who've grown up in Marxist nations and socialist nations, and so they can learn some context behind these topics, in the app, and listening to your show, and I mean, they can go and learn these. But here's what I mean on an example of compassion going both ways. So we could say to someone who's pro-socialism, we could say, it sounds to me after listening to you just now that you've got a good heart. I think you want everyone to thrive in our society, and I think that's beautiful. Where I get lost is in socialist or Marxist countries. As long as someone's contributing, everything can be fine. But an example would be, once someone reaches a certain age and they are no longer seen as contributors to society, but now more of a drain, then the compassion kind of goes out the window. So, for example, if a 75-year-old woman has a heart attack and they call for an ambulance, the ambulance just doesn't come because they're no longer seen as a contributor. So my question to you would be, who do you think would be disposable in our society when we turn socialist? Just some food for thought. It's great to see you. I look forward to seeing you next week at the game, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. See you later, and you walk away.
Yeah, it's food for
and you've
thought.
dropped that.
Yep,
food for thought. But the discipline is to walk away, and the question has to be, so that compassion has to be for the fellow man too, because that's where a lot of them are coming from. So we have to speak their language, right? We've got to tap into the things they care about. So they're telling us they care about society, they care about everyone thriving. So when they have to actually entertain the idea that there could be something cruel attached to socialism, and they have to start entertaining that idea, it will shake their worldview a bit. They'll go, that doesn't really happen. Does that really happen? Does that really? And it'll stay with them. It'll keep them up at night. And then the next time they see you, like at the game next week, they'll be like, does that really happen? And then you have opportunity to drop another seed and water that seed. That's what I mean when I say it invites further discussion. So rather than repelling them by coming on too strong, you've just dropped that food for thought in their mind that's growing, and they want to talk to you about it again because they feel compelled to, and they feel safe to do that.
Well, and what that is doing, it is you talk about planting a seed. But then in situations like that, you are nurturing that seed.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that it will grow. You run into them at a game or some other event or just down the street or whatever. Then you nurture that seed again, and it really helps that thought process to grow. And I think that's what some people have trouble doing, is developing that thought process, because they've never really had to develop that thought process. And speaking of thought processes, for those of you that have come in late, we're going to do this again, so hang on.
Lady up around this house, lady up around this town. Victory on the battleground, we claim it now. Lady up around this house, lady up around this town. Victory on the battleground, we claim it now. Lady up around this house, lady up around this town. Victory on the battleground, we claim it now. Women of America, here's some breaking news. Ain't no cavalry coming to save the red from the rabid blue. We have the power, time to take the field. Step up and into your ruby red heels. Taking back this house, taking back this town. Mama, don't back down, just a lady up, lady up, lady up. Sidewalks are for bicycles, not for angry moms. Our children will know peace again, 'cause we're on the job. Yeah, we're fired up and we're ready, so give us a little room. Get up. Our faith gon' move that mountain now, just watch it move. Taking back this house, taking back this town. Mama, don't back down, just a lady up, lady up, lady up. Taking back this house. Victory on the battleground, we claim it now. We claim it. Lady up around this town. Come on, lady up around this town. Victory on the battleground, we claim it now. Lady up around this town. Lady up around this town. Victory on the battleground, we claim it now. Lady up, lady up. Lady up, lady up. Lady up, lady up. Lady up, lady up. Lady up, lady up.
And the work is going forward, and we have with us the queen of Lady Up America, Diane Canada.
Lady up, lady up.
Diane, I just had another perfect idea. That needs to be a ringtone.
Oh.
That needs to be a ringtone.
Oh, that's a great idea. I will take you up on that. Absolutely. I love that. That's a great idea, Richard. Perfect idea.
Perfect idea.
You're 3 for 3.
3 for 3 here today. Oh.
I had so much fun singing that. I mean, when you're playing with Stevie Wonder's drummer, I mean, come on. It was so much fun. I think we did that in like 2 takes.
Wow. And just because you had his Stevie Wonder's drummer, I'm not going to say that was very insightful. I'm not going to say that. So.
We've been talking about sight to the blind all morning. I'll tell you, that's you're really on your game today, Richard. I got to tell you, you really are.
It's Friday.
Yeah, that was so. It's Friday. That's right. It's Friday. It's Friday. You know, I want to go back to something you were saying a second ago. We were talking about, watering the seeds and all that. It's one of the things I wanted to bring up is, women, I think all of us would have a hard time walking up and sharing our political views or something with strangers, right? So I think that's the beauty of this lady up idea too, is that, these are people we encounter every day, all the time. And the people that we're going to see over and over and over again, whether as acquaintances or family or friends, this is where the influence is going to take place. This is the battleground around our Thanksgiving kitchen tables, and around our water coolers at work and around our dinner tables at night. And I mean, this is where the battleground is. There's a battle between good and evil right now in our country, and it's masquerading as a political battle. But it is a good and evil battle. So we have to fight with the spiritual weapons. People are like, yeah, I want to stand up, I want to fight, but they don't know how. And this is the answer. It's like it's a spiritual battle. So it requires spiritual weapons. And so these 3 steps, all based in biblical principles and teaching us how to have spiritual warfare, knowing that the battle is the Lord, like the war is God's, right? Like this is a good and evil battle. Spoiler alert, we already win in the end. We know that, right? But we are the special ops on the front lines right now, and we've got to be suited up. I go through this ritual every morning in Ephesians of suiting up in my spiritual armor. I literally go through that in my prayers. Lord, I put on my shoes of peace. Not only do I want peace in my life today, Lord, but I'm going to take it into every room that I walk into today. I put on my shoes of peace. So everywhere I walk today, I bring peace into those settings. And I have, something like that attached to every piece of the armor. But we've got to be armed up so that we're not sitting ducks for the enemy. And then we've got to put on that sword of God's word, which is speaking his scriptures out loud. That the word coming out of our mouth is the sword. And when we say, get behind me, Satan, when we say all things are possible with God, when we say all things are working together for my good, for those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose, pick a couple scriptures. You don't have to know the whole Bible, but pick a couple of scriptures and wield that sword out of your mouth. It's got to come out of your mouth. This is the spiritual fight we're in. So we have to understand the authority. It's like going into battle, in a gunny sack versus going in all armed up. And we gotta lady up. We gotta lady up.
And I think one of the things when I was like 11 or 12 in church, and I got a new Sunday school teacher, and he was a great man. He knew the scriptures backwards and forwards. And William P. Aiken, I'll never forget this man. And he was in his 70s at this time, but he was a great teacher. And, every year we always went in, the teacher would give us all these scriptures to memorize. So we're sitting there and we're going, okay, you got the list for scriptures you want us to memorize? He says, no. He says, we're not going to do memorization. I want you to understand the principle of the scripture, and I want you to understand the value it is to you as an individual. And, it took me 2 or 3 years to really grasp that and understand it versus 11 and 12-year-old. And that has guided my life. Understand the principle of whatever you're studying. And like you say, you don't have to memorize the whole Bible. You don't have to be able to quote the whole Bible. Quoting is good. But if you understand the principle behind it and the value it is to yourself and to others, then you can have that discussion from a position of strength and a position of power, and it will bring the Spirit into that discussion, and the Spirit touches everybody. So
Right.
it's understanding that principle. No matter what it is, understand. I do segments, principles from the Constitution. Constitution has 28 principles, and I kind of skip around. I don't go one through, but what are the principles? How does it apply to us? How is it going to make us as individuals, as a family, as a society, and as a government better by following these principles? Same thing here.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's the Bible or your math or whatever it is, what is this principle?
Mhm. Mhm. Exactly. And the other thing that I teach in my work is the foundation. Like, a lot of people don't have the time or even the inclination to go and take a political science class or go and dig deep into our history books. I wish they would, but in our average everyday lives, as people are starting to adopt more and more habits around politics, they're doing that reluctantly. They really don't want to do that, but they're having to do it because it's on our doorstep, right? So I've simplified the political talking points in the 7 founding values of our country. Like, again, I want people to go and read the Constitution. I work with the 917 Society with Joni Bryan, and she's putting constitutions back in schools. In fact, on my tour, we've put thousands of them in schools on my tour already. We're going to continue to do that. So I'm a believer in the Constitution. I'm a believer in the Bible. I work with Stephen Skelton with the American Bible Project, and we are putting the Bibles back in schools. I'm on his board, and so I'm all for that. But I know that the average person is only going to do so much to learn about politics in this modern day and time. So what I did is I heard Marsha Blackburn giving an interview one day, and she used the phrase, we as conservatives, we believe in the rule of law. And I'm like, what is she talking about? Like, where did that come from? And it just sort of perked my ears up. I'm like, where did she get that? And so I went digging for it, and I discovered these 7 conservative values that I had never come across before. It was when I was running for State House of Representatives. I'm like, why is nobody talking about these? These are nonpartisan. They are the foundation of our country. They're easy to understand. It brings everything into context. They preceded the Constitution. So I dug them out of the crypt, right? And I dusted them off, and I'm like, we got to get these back into the modern conversation. So the 7 founding values of our country are the identity of our country. They're the soul of our country. Like, when we hear Biden saying, oh, we're fighting for the soul of our nation, like, those are words. The soul of our nation are these 7 values. And I think you might have them handy, Richard.
I do.
Help me if I miss one. Yeah. So it's the rule of law, like I said. It's individual freedom, limit, which, the rule of law means what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? That should be the rule of law. Mm-hmm. The individual freedom means that we are to be self-governing, right? That we have freedom to move about in our country as we please, and we need to be left alone to do that. The human dignity piece is my favorite of the 7, and that is that we were created by God with unalienable natural law rights, and the government's job is to uphold those rights, not grant them to us. Then we have free markets, which means, the way I see it in modern day terms, is if you walk into a produce section in New York in the middle of the winter and you have an array of colors to choose from of fruits and vegetables, that is the epitome of free markets, as opposed to walking into that store and having cleaned out shelves like it looks after a snowstorm. That's the difference. Help me on the next couple. We've got 3 more. So we have peace through strength is the next one. Which is like a bully.
Responsibility.
Yep, fiscal responsibility. And there's one more.
Human dignity, individual freedom, rule of law, limited government, fiscal responsibility.
Limited government. Yep.
Yeah, limited government, free markets, and peace through strength. Diane, yes. we have a caller. So
okay, great.
Let's take this caller and see what's going on with this caller. Hello, you are welcome to the Medlock Post. Who's calling and from where?
Hello, this is Yvette DeMaria from Charleston, South Carolina. Actually, Johns Island, but most people don't know that, so I'm right outside Charleston.
Well, Yvette, welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Well, I just wanted to say I do want that Lady Up ringtone. I'm here in Charleston.
Yvette, since you said that, Diane, yes. I get royalties. I have
Hi,
it.
Hey, Diane. Good morning. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Richard, Yvette is hosting my next Lady Up event on Saturday. So I'm so glad to know you're listening this morning. Thanks for calling in.
Amen, Diane. So I just wanted Larry to know that, number one, yes, that ringtone, I was blessed to be raised in Alabama and boots and country boots, country music, cowboy hats, my Bible, God and country. And it's such a blessing that Diane came to Charleston. That's all I'm going to say. We have a lot of struggles here. So anybody listening, I'm just asking for prayers. I've been here about 8 years, and when I first moved here, I just cannot believe when Diane says there's apathy, she has seen that dead on here. And we have 27 RSVPs right now. It's a very intimate, personal get-together Saturday, and we're just so excited that Diane's here partnering with us. She's an answer to prayer. I have been such in prayer to have new techniques and how to reach some of these people. And let me tell you something. She was there Monday night at my meeting because I am a Republican federated woman, and I run a meeting. I'm president. And she was there, and hearts I could see were changed just in her 3 minutes of speaking. And we even reached a 27-year-old, and he realized that he is way more alike with me than different, even though the world tells him as a 27-year-old different person that he should hate me. And he was absolutely confused as to why he thought I was so fabulous just talking to me and my husband.
Yeah, that's a great message. And I hope many people show up for the event tomorrow night in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm sure you can go to the upwithamerica.com website and find the location where it is. Yvette, I have a question for you. I have answers for everything, but I have a question for you, Yvette. Or it might not be an answer, but I have something to say. But Yvette, what is your number one concern about America right now?
Going after our family values and our children. What I'm concerned about is I have grandchildren, and guys, you're talking to a very, very, Diane can say it to you. I love my hair. I love my nails. I love my makeup. I love being a woman. But as a child, I was a tomboy, y'all. I wanted to be barefoot in shorts, be out there with horses and dirt bikes, and I could jump higher than some of the guys. I played flag football, and so what's going on now that I see that is so scary to me is I have a grandchild, a granddaughter, and a grandson, and I am fearful that in school, just because my granddaughter may like something that's boyish and my grandson may like something that's girlish, that somebody will take them aside and tell them that God didn't make them in the right gender, which is total. It's not the right message, guys. God makes us. We are created and put in the womb in his image, and he doesn't make mistakes. What happens and what I see in the world is the world beats us down. And when we don't have our identity in Christ, in the Bible, and like Diane said, we don't armor up every day and we don't teach our children how to armor up, this world will beat us down, and they fall for the easy way, right? Broad way is broad. God is narrow. Narrow is the path. And I just see parents being so busy these days and not taking the time to talk to their kids about these issues. And believe me, our kids are being blasted. My 9-year-old daughter did not have social media, but social media found her. And so I was preaching and talking and getting her to understand mom's values, mom's morals, where they came from. But I wanted her to explore and get her own. They were blue-pilling her on the side of me at school and in social media posts. But there was a moment that they brought up something that totally went against her grain and went against something that I had been teaching her. And her little brain clicked in, and she got red-pilled at 9 years old because she realized it wasn't really red-pilling. She realized the truth. And she realized that social media was lying to her because she found the truth in the Bible at 9 years old.
And that's a great story and a great example. But the key there, Yvette, was the fact that you were involved with your child's life. You were talking to your daughter. You were teaching her the values and principles from the scriptures and helping her understand who she really is. We mentioned earlier in the show, if everybody would wake up in the morning and right off the bat say, I am a child of God and I will represent God today, we would have a better world. What do you think of that?
Well, I think you're right, because I think that's exactly what I do. Before my feet hit the floor, if I wake up, when I wake up every morning, if I wake up, right, because we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. I have a story for that. Diane sure knows that one. We don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. So when we wake up in the morning, that is a gift from God. And he runs our life anyway. We give it all to him and we say that, but I come from a different place of that. It is all his anyway. He's allowing us to live it. He made us all, and he made us all different, and he made us all have free will. But I wake up every morning, and when I wake up, before my feet hit the floor, I say to him, thank you for waking me up. Now use me for your kingdom. Then I come out, get my coffee, read my Bible, get armored up, and then I just go about my day. But sometimes he throws in a detour. And I think what happens with people is they get so busy in the day, they don't look for those detours. I look for the detours, and I grab those moments. Because it is all about his kingdom.
That's great thought, because as we go out there, and it might not be the Lord throwing the detours at us, it's Satan. And we have to be ready for that. But your key point right off the bat was they're coming after families, because families is the core of Christ's plan. The strength of the family is the strength of society. So that has been under attack over and over and over. And a lot of parents, through their education process, through other means, just say, oh, okay, really my kids are not my responsibility. The government's going to take care of them. And when you fall into that trap, you have walked into slavery because someone else is a master of your life and your children's lives. And that is being allowed to happen, and we need to reverse that. And I had another thought, and it left, and then I'll think about it again. It was something that you said, Yvette, about addressing when you're in a conversation with someone. And I'll think of it. I promise you, it might be a year from now, but I'll think of it. So,
can I throw something in, Richard?
Yes.
I wanted to just throw this out. I talk about this a lot, but it's so important for people to know. There is a book out there right now that I am encouraging every mom, every dad too, to pick up. It's called The Invincible Family. The Invincible Family, and it's by a woman named Kimberly Ells. You spell her last name E-L-L-S, like Sam. And she has beautifully explained why and how they are after our kids in the schools, especially when it comes to this gender issue you brought up, Yvette, and the over-sexualization of our kids. She explains how it's coming from this global order at the UN, and Planned Parenthood is a very big player at this table. And basically what happened for her was she came across in some research, she's a very balanced writer, columnist, and she's written for a lot of conservative papers over the years. And she came across the 10 sexual rights of children. And, of course, it raised her eyebrow, and she's like, what is this? And she started digging, and this started her on this path to writing this book. She was part of a committee that went up and addressed the UN and started really digging for these answers around our kids. But basically, the whole gist of it is there are 3 things that have to be removed in order for this global Marxism to take over. The first thing that has to come out is God. There can be no higher being above government. So God has to come out. So they've been working on that now for several decades. He's pretty much out, in our schools and workplaces and all that. The second thing that has to be removed is the dads have to come out of the house. So the nuclear family has to be destroyed. And they've pretty much done that. So the last and final piece that has to come out of society before true Marxism can take root is the mother and child bond has to be broken. So this is why they're referring to mothers now as birthing people. This is why the gender neutral whole narrative is taking root. No difference between boy and girl. They want just basically it people, and they also want children to be able to, for there to be no laws against any kind of sexual activity between any age child and any age adult, that children should be free to explore their sexuality. And so pedophilia should be legalized, and we're already starting to see moves toward that in California. So because mothers, by God's law, have the strongest influence and the strongest bond with their children of anybody. They belong to their mothers. They are attached to their mothers via the umbilical cord when they're born. The mother-child bond is the strongest in the universe. And so to break that, then children will become, they will be owned by the state. In her words, mothers would be relieved of the burden of child rearing. This is appealing for corporations and all of that who don't want mothers to have to take time off to child rear, don't want to pay maternity leave, all that kind of stuff. So it's a global effort to basically remove all authority from society so that we can become a truly Marxist nation and owned and run by the government. So this is why I'm after the moms. The moms are the last stand. The moms are the last stand between evil and our children. And it's chilling what she reveals in that book about it. She does also, though, give a lot of hope, and she teaches us how. Her methods are very similar to mine, so we can fight it. It's not hopeless. And that bond really can't be broken because it is designed by God. But we have to lady up. We have to lady up, and we've got to learn how to fight this evil with the spiritual weapons that I'm talking about. But pick up that book, everybody, The Invincible Family by Kimberly Ells.
Well, also, you're actually, when you talk about these 3 things, and I've been sitting here making notes, believe it or not, folks, I can read and write. And some of the things that you read are right out of the 10 goals of Marxism.
Yes.
And the 10,
yes.
one of them
straight
is straight out of it. It is to destroy the family, and to take the children away from their parents. And when you read deeper into Marx, they describe parents as abusive and over-possessive and indoctrinating and ruining the children, and the state has to take them away from that. Well, that's just the opposite. Mothers are the most nurturing, loving people on earth. They will do anything for their children. And I'm going to go back. Yvette, Yvette, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. I was just on mute.
Okay. What are your thoughts about what Diane and I have just discussed?
Well, I do agree with it, and I was at a meeting last night locally. We were discussing. We had a representative from Heritage Action with us, and he was explaining to us some legislative bills that are coming through the South Carolina House this year on education, and the big one is parental rights. And again, we were slammed here in Charleston. They were throwing masks on our children, even though we had religious exemptions that exempted us from it. And even though our own governor said that you should not, we had the freedom. If we wanted to, great. If we didn't want to, no. Yet our children were being so ostracized by teachers and administration that they just masked anyway, even though they had exemptions. So that, to me, I've already seen it. Second of all, last night somebody was saying that already in California, like Diane just said, say my daughter goes to school and she goes to a counselor and says, I feel like I'm a boy. Do you know that in California they can go ahead and start chemical castration without the parent's knowledge or consent? Well, here's what I say to that. You try touching my child while she's at school and you see what's going to confront you. In fact, my daughter sometimes looks at them and says, my mom, right? And I'm exempted from taking all this SEL and CRT and all these polls. We opt out of all of those surveys. I saw right away 8 years ago when I moved here. They were ridiculous, and it was mining for information. So, again, I try to tell moms and parents, please opt your children out, because they're asking a lot of personal questions that they don't need to know. Just teach my child reading, writing, arithmetic, academics. I'll teach the socialization. I'll teach from the Bible. And that's where we have a serious problem is you're exactly right. The government feels like they own our children, yet here's the funny caveat to that. Let that said child go out and do a criminal act, and who do they come for? The child and the parent. Am I right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there's the hypocrisy.
Yes, very selective.
It's hypocrisy. It's hypocrisy right in your face.
Well,
and,
again. Yeah, Diane, you were going to say something?
Oh no, I was just agreeing with her that it's very selective. It's selective outrage. It's selective, rule of the rule of law. But here's the thing: we are allowing this. We have the power, but people have to be. How can I say this? Like, this doesn't have to go on. We are allowing it to go on because we don't know how to fix it. We don't know what to do to correct it. A lot of people think that the government's just so corrupt and it's a runaway train at this point, and we don't know, we can't turn that train around. It's just going to go off the cliff. And that's not true. It's so not true. The majority of America feels the way we do. The large majority. You've got the radicals on both sides of the aisle. There are bad people on both sides, both parties. We've got those people that have, I equate it to like the Wizard of Oz. Like, the scene in the Wizard of Oz where, they realize that this big, powerful, scary figure is really just this little man behind this little green curtain and he's exposed. I mean, that's what's going on in our society. We think that everybody's on board with this, but they're not. We think it's this big, powerful, I'm not saying that they don't have media and big tech and all that in their pocket. They do. But as the people of America, the large majority, they call them the silent majority, we have so much power. We just don't know how to tap into it. It's like in the Wizard of Oz where she said you had the power all along to go home. We have the power. We have, it's like my song. I want to start singing my song again. We have the power.
Well,
I mean, we do.
Well,
go ahead, Richard.
When you do that, I think the Wizard of Oz is on Turner Classic Movies tonight. But hey folks, we cover the bases here. But when you're talking about this parent thing, the parents found out during the shutdowns what their kids were being taught, and the pushback has been massive. And we are seeing more and more school boards, these liberal school boards get voted out. They had a big sweep in Sarasota, Florida the other day. All the liberals were voted out and conservatives went in, and all of them were parents. And we're seeing that pushback taken quite a bit. Parents are saying, no, we're not going to public school anymore. We're going to come out. We're going to go to a private school or homeschool, and there's some great programs to do homeschooling. And so there's a massive pushback here. There are a lot of things we can do, and people are finding out the value of their vote again. And I think I've got to make that point clear again. I tried to at the beginning of the program. That vote is important, folks, whether it's for school board or mayor or county councilman or president, whoever it is, that vote is important. The one joins the other one, and then you have a consensus of right. And that's what we're fighting to get done here. Now, I remembered, folks, what I forgot earlier that Yvette was talking about, and how to talk with someone on the other side. And it's about the free will, the agency that God gave us. And under a socialist situation or a Marxist or whatever you want to call it, it's all the same thing. What type of agency do you have in controlling your life under that system? Could you explain that to me?
You're talking to Yvette or to me?
That's a general question to throw out to someone on the other side, but you two can answer. And Diane, I'm looked at the clock, and I'm sitting here. We have 23 minutes left, and I'm gonna have to have you back again. And which is
well, we have fun together.
This is a lot of fun. And we found out today on 3 occasions that Richard is perfect, and that he just became part of a money-making operation in ringtone. and we already have a demand for the ringtone, the Up With America anthem, or Lady Up America anthem. Yvette, I want to throw this at you. What about Man Up America? How does that ring? Man Up America.
You know what? I'm fine with anything. I just want Up America. Does that make sense?
Up America. That's right.
I'm blessed to be an American, and for people who have never been outside the United States, I mean, I think what happens to us in America is we just feel like everybody outside is like us, or some are being taught that they're better than us. But let me tell you something from somebody who has been out of the country, from somebody who my father fled communism in Hungary to get to America to have his children and grandchildren live in a free society. It is not better out there. So goes America, so goes the world. And you know what I call socialism? Soft communism.
It is.
That's all it is. It's communism, just soft, and it's going to, go into communism. And I try to tell people this is why history is so important. God gives us history, so prayerfully we don't repeat ourselves, but we keep repeating ourselves.
Yeah, and I appreciate you very nicely telling me Man Up America didn't have a ring to it. So...
You know what? I say that. I said just anybody. I mean, I am not. I'm not one of these feminist guys. I love my husband. I love my boy children. I mean, I have 3 of them out there, and I absolutely adore them. I love my daughter-in-law. I just got a new one, and I love my grandkids, and that's what life is all about, guys. And I tell people all the time, it's about family, and I guess that's what God is pulling at our hearts with this COVID. He's kind of teaching us, it is all about family. I never thought I'd see a shutdown in America. I never thought that could happen, but it happened, and I think it was a wake-up call. And I call it COVID blessings because it is waking up people.
It was a blessing, and families. The surveys have shown, the studies, that families became stronger. Diane, and I was just teasing about not telling me Man Up was.
No. I loved what Yvette said about I am for anything that is up for America. And it reminded me of a speech Reagan gave years ago that was so profound. And he said, you know, it's really not, America should not be about left or right. It should be about up or down. And he said, anyone who would trade our liberties and our freedom for security is on a downward spiral, and I don't want any part of that, something along those lines. He said and he said something also about the liberals. He says, it's not that our liberal friends are stupid. It's just that they know so much about that which isn't so. You know, and that's the thing about the history. It's got to be about upward mobility, upward opportunities, upward. And this is the thing that just breaks my heart about those who are falling for the seduction of socialism, is this is what it looks like to me. It's like you're just a little baby bird, and you're just going to stay in the little nest, and we're going to bring you a little half of a worm every now and then. You don't want to get out of that nest because it's scary out there. You might fall and break a wing. You know, you just stay right there in the little nest, and we'll take care of you. As opposed to the conservatives of the world, you are an eagle. Do you know how high you could fly? Do you have any idea how powerful you are? Do you have any idea the vistas that are waiting for you out there? That, to me, sums up the freedom of America. I mean, our icon is the eagle, right? Versus the just stay in your little nest, baby bird. That's the liberal communism, you know, the socialist that leads to communism, the Marxism view. And it is a travesty. It is, to me, it is the cruelest thing to rob someone of their potential and their dignity in exchange for some security.
Yeah, and that's part of Satan's plan, because to beat you down, to discourage you in all that you can do. And I love your analogy about the eagle, the nest, and then the eagle soaring high. My friend, Dr. Larry Biddle, who I had on the show last week, and we talked about education. He's great in education and developed great plans and that are working in America today. And he developed this eagle ship plan. And he says the same things. The eagle soars above everybody else. And that's America. America has always soared above everybody else, not on a better than you, but because the human spirit was unleashed in a plan that you go and do what you want to do what you love, strengthen your family, and then let the free market take its whatever. I can remember when we talk about free markets, part of your plan there, in the 60s and 70s in that area when I was a stockbroker, and a company would get in trouble. I remember one time a major insurance company got in financial trouble. The government didn't bail them out. The other insurance came in and bought their policies and bought their company so that the insured would not suffer any losses. And that was free market. If a company went under, it went under. That was a free market instead of the government coming in and bailing them out. And when we go back and talk about this student loan thing, remember Obama nationalized student loans. He took it away from all the banks and private lenders and nationalized it, and now we have just a travesty with it because government took it
subsidies. The subsidies to the colleges and all of that, and so they inch up the tuition every year. We wonder why that's a runaway train. You know, if you look at the policies that started back, you know, the Lyndon Johnson days, when you start looking at maybe what appeared to be for the good, right? We came out of the civil rights movement, all of that. We started these welfare programs. We started Section 8 housing. We started all these things that on the surface look like they would be helpful for people, right? But as we look at from the 50 years later, if we actually just look at the data, if we just look at the stats, if those were supposed to be a hand up rather than a hand out, then why are we not seeing less people on those programs and instead more people on those programs? You know, if all of this was working, don't we seem to be going in the wrong direction? And obviously, I teach in the women's prison in Tennessee, and I see the result of fathers not being in homes and the crime rates and how people end up in prisons. And I hear their stories. I mean, when I teach in there, we go pretty deep on how they got there. And the story is the same over and over and over again. And so these incentives of the dads coming out so the moms with children would get more money. And we've got talk about a systemic problem. I mean, that is a systemic problem. Those dads coming out of those households, even in those lower income environments, it's all so obvious when we look at government policies fail. They fail the human spirit so much. They fail on every level. And I sat down with a Democrat legislator in Tennessee for lunch one day, and he went on to get his doctorate. He's, like I said, a sitting legislator right now, and he was telling me how he grew up right across the street from a boy in the same neighborhood, and that boy ended up in jail, and he ended up with the doctorate. And we were trying to discover what were the differences. And he said basically the difference was in his household he was surrounded by mentors, people who told him what he could become, versus the other boy was raised by a single mom and who had generations of that in that neighborhood. And she was one of those people who stood around with her hand on her hip going, I'm going to get mine. I'm going to get mine. Yep. It's that entitlement attitude. And that's the difference. And I saw it over and over and over again. So robbing someone of their potential, the government programs, all these things, it's criminal what they do to the human spirit.
Well, it takes any incentive away from them. It destroys that human spirit. Where's my Obama phone? Remember that? Where's my Obama phone?
Yeah. Yeah,
and,
give me it.
Right.
I want mine.
Yeah, give me it. I want mine. Where's my refrigerator? Buy me this. Buy me that. You're the government. And when Roosevelt developed the great plan that came out, and part of that was to get more and more people on welfare, and then the Cloward-Piven plan came out in the 60s, and that was implemented to just grow the welfare rolls and keep them on the welfare rolls generation. And when we look at it, $70+ trillion that the government has spent, or we have spent as taxpayers, on the welfare program, and the numbers keep growing and growing because they want more and more people on those rolls dependent upon the government and not really thinking. And that's the big challenge today, because those numbers have gotten so big. We don't want them educated. We don't want the fathers around. I mean, they started that in the 50s, getting the fathers out of the home. And I can tell stories. I had when I had my businesses, I would have part-time employees, and some of them were minorities, and anywhere from 18 years old up to 25 and even older, but mostly in that they were part-time. And I would hear these ladies talk, these young women talk, and I was around the corner from three of them standing there. They didn't realize I was there. And she was telling the other two, you need to have 3 children before you're 18, and then you have to have one a year, Make sure you have different fathers, so that they just go, they're not in the picture, and all of this stuff, and how to maximize benefits from the government.
Yeah. And that's right.
And I had one lady, and you try to offer them a raise, and they don't want it. Oh, no, you'll put me over my monthly limit, and then my rent will go
up. Right.
Because
that's
they're
right.
in
That's exactly
Section
right.
8. And I had one lady, one girl come to work, and they used to bring me these documents to fill out for government stuff. And I says, well, if I fill it out, I take $25 out of your check, or you can fill it out and bring back and I'll sign it. And you had to do that. You had to sign them. You couldn't refuse it by law. So they just said, oh, okay, I'll fill it in and bring it back. They wanted their $25. So this one girl came and brought me one to apply for HUD housing. Well, once I signed it and she worked out the day, she never came back to work, never saw her again. So 2 or 3 weeks later, I get a call from HUD about this girl. And she said, did she work for you? Or she said, we're calling about her application. I says, well, she no longer works here. I says, I don't know where she works. She says, that's okay. They have to have a job when they apply, but they have to be unemployed to get the benefit.
My goodness.
And I said,
wow.
What? I said, explain rationally to me. Go ahead, Yvette.
And there again, hypocrisy, right? You have to have the job to get them to fill out the form, but then you don't have to have a job to keep the benefit. It just doesn't make sense. And it brings up a very important point here to what Diane was saying. You know, to me as a mother and as a businesswoman, if somebody would have kept me in a box, I mean, I shudder to think what my life would look like right now. But because I had so many opportunities, and believe you me, I had to struggle and I had to fight for them. I mean, it was not an easy walk for me my whole entire life. And I just think about that, but that's what made me stronger, right? And so if we would just, I think as human beings, we also like to put God in a box. And we don't give him the opportunity to see the signs and wonders, because I tell people all the time, if you want to see God's signs and wonders, you better hang out with me and my family, because we see them every single day in our walk with God. And that's how my daughter is influencing. My daughter is 17. She'll be 18 in December. And let me tell you guys, she is a force to be reckoned with, because we haven't kept her in a box. And God is just blessing her, and she is talking to her generation, and it comes naturally to her. You know, I'm having to learn how to talk to other people that aren't like me, but she has it inside her, and she brings them into the fold. And there was just testimony Saturday night in North Charleston from children that had been brought into the fold to Christ by my daughter. And so we're doing it right. And I tell people, just walk alongside us. That's all I'm asking for. Just even if you don't feel the same way we do, if you walk alongside us, I know God will work on their heart. It's just like what Diane was saying. We plant the seeds, we leave them with little droplets. I always try to get the last word in with a conversation with somebody so that I can plant that seed. And like she said, then I just say, have a great night, and I walk away till next time.
Well, and the biggest teacher, the biggest thing that we can do is be the example of a Christ-like life. Be the example.
Right.
You live it. You don't just preach it.
Yep.
You live it. Your daughter is an example, and they're seeing that. I mean, I've seen, and you two probably have too, you're out somewhere and someone says, I love your family. I love just the way you're interacting with your children and so forth. They notice those things. They notice how you're kind to other people. People are out there seeking goodness. They really are. They don't know where to find it. They're seeking the answers to a better life, to a better government. They don't know where to find the answers. And so we're trying to reach out to all these people that are looking for those answers and help them as much as we can. And we've had some great comments here today. This has been a great show. We have 7 minutes left. Diane?
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's kind of like customer service, right? Like these days, customer service is like in the toilet. You know, you go somewhere and somebody's on the phone, they don't look up at you when you walk up to the counter. I mean, it is, I was in Best Buy the other day, and, you know, it was a bunch of young kids in there, which is fine, but they were all literally talking in corners, and I walk up to try to ask a question, and they look at me like I'm totally inconveniencing them, you know. So, but when you go to somewhere like Chick-fil-A, or you go and you notice that, you know, you have great experiences with customer service, it really stands out. You really notice it because of the contrast. Well, I think we have this opportunity right now as, you know, as Christ followers, as people of faith, to really stand out, you know, and we don't have to do anything other than just live well, you know, and it's not anything, like I love, someone said, you know, your life is your sermon, only speak when necessary, you know, something like that. And it's so true. We're being watched, we're being modeled, and it shouldn't be some act that we're putting on or some mask we're wearing. It has to be genuine. And when people see the hypocrisy, it's like all it does is just hurt God's message so much, because then they just roll their eyes again and go, okay, I guess there's another hypocrite, Christian. But if they actually see you walking it out, and again, you can't do that in your own strength. It has to come through the help of the Holy Spirit in order for us to be able to live up to that. Not that we're not going to make mistakes, not that we're perfect people, but if we fall off the wagon, if we make a mistake, it's how we handle that. And they're watching that too. So you make a mistake, you own it, you take responsibility for it, you ask for forgiveness, and you get back up without any condemnation, and you carry on as if it never happened, because that's the grace of God. That's what he promises us, is he remembers our sin no more. When we confess it and we're forgiven, we don't walk around with a big heavy burden on us like that we have to carry it. It's released. It's gone. And so we don't have to be perfect people. We just have to have perfect hearts toward God, and that's what the world is starving for right now. And all of this incivility, all of this infighting, even within our own parties, all of this, it's just a symptom of a disease inside of us, that we don't have that relationship with God. You can sit in a pew all day long, it doesn't make you a Christian. But that relationship with God is what people are starving for. They're so starved for it. And so if they see it in someone, it is contagious. Courage is contagious. And we have this golden opportunity right now. We have people running away in droves from the Democrat Party. They are running away. They see how detrimental these policies are. It doesn't mean they're running to conservative values. And this is our opportunity right now to win them to those values.
And with that, let me read this quote by Sherry Dew. She's written some great books, D-E-W. Noble and great, courageous and determined, faithful and fearless, that is who you are and who you have always been. And understanding it can change your life, because this knowledge carries a confidence that cannot be duplicated any other way. And she's referring to the noble and great as we being children of God. So when we look at all of this and tie all these pieces together and looking at who we are, and I'm gonna suggest that everybody go back to my episode 42 that I did Wednesday, and I talked about the public virtue that the founding fathers had to create. It took them 3-4 years in the colonies to create that public virtue so that they could become self-governing, so that they could become a free people. And they had to do this before breaking away from the tyrannies of the King of England. So there's a process here, and we're going through that process now. We're in that process now of trying to bring back the public virtue and the strength that comes with it, the self-governing, so we can break away from the secularism that has permeated our society. Yvette, thank you so much for your call. It was so valuable, your insight. Keep up the good work. May the Lord bless you in everything you do, and your daughter, bless her heart for the work that she's doing. Diane, keep this up, and yes, you will be back on the Medlock Post, and Richard, he'll be back too, I hope. But just
thank you for having us.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. And program notes, Monday, episode 44, we will be honoring John Locke. It's the 390th anniversary of his birthday. And then on Tuesday, it is serving our community. We'll be having Kathy Larson back on from justserve.org and a couple of other people. We'll be talking about the National Day of Service that is coming up on September 11th. This has been going on for several years. We're trying to get someone from that organization to join us. So the next few days is going to, our next few shows are going to be very informative. And then Wednesday, I'm probably going to do another principle of the Constitution that you will not want to miss. And we're going to go out, ladies and gentlemen, with the song, the new ringtone that's going to be on millions of phones.
Radio around this house,
ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here.
On the battleground.
Thank you. Everybody, have a great day.
Lady up around this house. Lady up around this town. Victory on the battleground. We claim it now. Lady up around this house. Lady up around this town. Victory on the battleground. We claim it now. Women of America, here's some breaking news. Ain't no cavalry coming to save the red from the rabid blue. We have the power, time to take the field. Step up and